Tax court can make the law. I'm constantly citing court cases, and the reason is almost every tax court case is considered law. If you have clothing or accessories, so you think of like jewelry, purses, like shoes, the three-part test is work, clothing, and accessories. I don't know if you guys have come across this. I know I have. A client will be like, I bought some new glasses, I bought a business suit, I got some cute work shoes, and I put those all in the business. We're good, right? This happens a lot where I've actually had clients, even after I've told them the law, they're like, my friend's CPA has a line item for like public image or personal image. Can we do that too? And of course my answer ends up being no, but I wanted to walk through why. And then this is the same research framework that I use for answering any question. And so for other questions, much less intuitive and very, very helpful. For this one, you could also gather the answer from the IRS instructions, but this is still bringing us to like, why is it the case that it's a no? So the law is coming from our standard IRC 162, right? So that's whenever we go look at the statute, ordinary necessary business expense, you would think, okay, well, I bought a business suit, in my opinion, as a business owner, or in my opinion, even as a CPA. That sounds ordinary necessary. Like, I definitely need a business suit. And I guess it could have gone that way after just the statute was passed, but what ends up happening is whenever we're doing tax research, I always look at, okay, then we look at Treasury regulation. A lot of times Treasury will give us some really good stuff. In this case, they don't. They basically just add next to nothing. They say, you know, just has to be directly connected to the business. But the reason we can't deduct typical like business use clothing, shoes, comes down to tax court. So that's actually where the law develops, and I think that's why so many people just completely mischaracterize the rule in this situation and why it doesn't go with what like your client might think is intuitive. Because tax court basically looked at it and this is a specific test. Like tax court can make the law. They can't override statute or Treasury regulation, but they can interpret statute and Treasury regulation. So that's what happens. So they basically continue to narrow it down. So what you'll find, and even if you've looked at the penalty abatement letters I have, I'm constantly citing court cases. And the reason is almost every tax court case is considered law. Like if I found a case where a tax court thinks X and my client has Y situation that is exactly the same as X situation, therefore it is literally law that the IRS must follow. Of course, the IRS can always try to differentiate and say, well, that situation is different than this situation, and then that's when people actually end up going to tax court. But that's why those court cases are so persuasive. And so in some areas of the law, it's literally like, it is so established that there's just no fighting it. And that's this situation for clothing, which is basically since like at least the 1950s, it's just been forever. There's no debate at this point. If you have clothing or accessories, so you think of like jewelry, purses, like shoes, and of course clothing, the three-part test is that it's required or essential for the job. So this is where people get into trouble. It's not just nice to have. It's like the more required it can be, the better. And then this is the one that everyone always fails. It's even if you use it solely for business, which is the third requirement, it doesn't matter if you're able to use it for personal. And that is the distinction, okay? So when clients come to you and say, hey, can I write off this nice piece of jewelry? I only bought it because I have a nice speaking event to go to. Well, is the nice piece of jewelry able, like very suitable for general or personal use? If the answer is yes, it doesn't matter that you're only using it for business, it's not deductible. Versus, and so that's where logos come into play. And I was looking at a lot of different examples and court cases. It does seem like when you have a logo on something, it tends to say, okay, it's not as suitable for personal use, but I do think there's a line there. So I've seen situations where I think if you made the logo like not visible or like not very large, not very significant, arguably it's still like, you know, you buy a business suit, but you put the logo like inside and the little lining. I think that would still be very much suitable for personal use. But I think arguably if you had a business suit where it's like plastered on the front with the logo and emblem, you would be potentially okay to deduct. But of course, most people aren't going to do that or aren't going to want to do that. The logo, the whole purpose is the logo is there. I mean, most people aren't going to want to wear it other than for work. I've seen some YouTube videos that try to go on the wrong side of this, where it's like they're buying a Louis Vuitton bag and then they like place the little logo inside the bag, you know what I mean? So we still have to look to the substance, which is not only is it not that significant for the work purpose, but we're really we can't, when you put that logo in there, it has to be true, like it's a shirt, and you got your logo, and I think you're good. I think if you've got the logo like penciled in below, or like you tuck it into the jeans, you haven't filled the substance part of what the tax court cases are trying to represent. But so generally, logo, you are good. From what I could tell, all the court cases typically use that as a differentiator, like scrubs for doctors. Even if there's no logo, I think generally people don't wear scrubs in their day-to-day life. So that type of thing, it's also, they look at context and given the profession, given what it is. So the more plain the shirt is, the more you would want to have for sure the logo on there. And then any costs associated with those, like if it is something deductible, then those dry cleaning costs are deductible. But if it's not deductible, then the cost to clean wouldn't be deductible. Even as an employee wants to deduct shirts they've purchased for work. Of course, right now, Schedule A, we've got those limitations, but once those come off on itemized deductions, employee follows the same exact rules. Can't deduct general work shirts, but if they wanted to buy themselves a shirt that was generally not usable personally because it has a pretty clear logo, and they wear it only for business, and it is required or essential for their employment, then they could deduct it themselves as an itemized deduction.